Good evening. This was a presentation I made for Nerd Night in August 2024. For me, it's something very special, and I hope you enjoy it. Queridos amigos, lo que sigue es una presentación que preparé para Nerd Night en agosto de 2024. Para mí es algo tan especial. Que disfruten. Liebe Freunde, das Folgende ist ein Vortrag, den ich für die Nerd Night im August 2024 vorbereitet habe. Bei mir ist das etwas ganz Besonderes. Ich hoffe, er gefällt euch. חברים יקרים, שלום. זוהי מצגת נרד נייט באוגוסט 2024. בשבילי זה משהו מיוחד מאוד. מקווה שתהנו.
We begin in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in 1957. Sylvia Hermann lived here with her parents. Sylvia would bring home a new boyfriend, Nicholas, Klaus, Eichmann. This was not a commonly recognized name, so it did not arouse suspicion, but Klaus did raise eyebrows when he mentioned that he thought the Germans should have finished the job with the Jews. Sylvia's father, Lothar Hermann, was German. He fled the Nazi regime after being blinded in a street attack. Upon emigrating to Argentina, he kept his Jewish identity secret, even from his daughter. Lothar Hermann was already uneasy about his daughter's boyfriend. He became alarmed when he learned that a high-ranking Nazi fugitive, Adolf Eichmann, was believed to be alive and living in Argentina. Lothar Hermann took action. He sent a letter to this man, Fritz Bauer. Bauer was the prosecutor for the German state of Hessen. On the right is a copy of some of the correspondence from Lothar Hermann to Fritz Bauer. Fritz Bauer did something extraordinary. He violated protocol. He did not trust his superiors in the German government. After all, many had been Nazis themselves. The state secretary under Chancellor Konrad Adenauer had been a member of the SS. So, Fritz Bauer and one of his colleagues contacted Israel. Who was Adolf Eichmann, and why was his presence in Argentina so significant that Fritz Bauer would risk his job? First of all, an Eich is an oak. Eichmann is oak man. It leads to one of the hardest words to say in English and one of the hardest words to say in German. Squirrel is a challenging word if one is not a native speaker of English. The German word is even harder, Eichhörnchen. A Hühnchen is a little horn or a croissant. Thus, a squirrel is an oak croissant. Adolf Eichmann was from the town of Solingen, Germany, a place known for its knives. He grew up in Linz, Austria. Adolf Eichmann attended the same high school as Adolf Hitler, though not at the same time. I have some questions about this high school, its curriculum, extracurricular activities, famous alumni, U.S. News and World Report rankings. Eichmann was not from power or money, and after school he worked as a traveling salesman. A friend encouraged him to join the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party was outlawed in Austria at that time, so Eichmann returned to Germany. He joined the Sicherheitsdienst, the security service. Eventually, Eichmann would join a Nazi office deputized with surveillance of perceived enemies of the regime, first the Freemasons, then the Jews. Eichmann would eventually lead the Zentralstelle für jüdische Auswanderung, the Central Office for Jewish Emigration. His office sought potential options for the Jewish question: exile in rural Poland, deportation to outposts in Africa, negotiating re-entry into British-mandated Palestine. At the Wannsee Conference, Eichmann and others determined that extermination would be the final solution to the Jewish question. Eichmann did not invent this idea. He wasn't holding pistols at the necks of children. He wasn't throwing canisters of poison gas. No, he was purchasing the poison, making certain that the Nazis got enough of it and at a low price. He was an engineer, ensuring that mass murder took place with speed and thrift. At the war's end, Eichmann was captured by the Americans. He was kept in a prisoner of war camp, but he had a false identity and he escaped. Eichmann would follow the Klosterroute, a rat line out of Europe. With the protection of the Catholic Church, Eichmann was secreted in churches and convents, making his way through Austria to Genoa. Eichmann boarded a ship bound for Buenos Aires and was given papers with the name Ricardo Clement, and this was his identity card. Eichmann would soon dispense with the alias Ricardo Clement. He lived under his own name, and his wife and children would eventually join him. Eichmann's wife, Veronica, Vera, had some penmanship problems when she registered as an immigrant to Argentina. She signed her paperwork Fichmann. Movies depicted an extravagant Fourth Reich in South America. Films like Marathon Man, Notorious, and The Boys from Brazil, pictured here, showed Nazi fugitives living in lavish excess. The reality was far more austere. Eichmann lived in this house. Yes, that's me. My dad took that photo. He built this house himself. It had no running water, and it was on Garibaldi Street in the far outskirts of Buenos Aires. He worked at a Mercedes-Benz factory. He was not hiding, but he kept a low profile. It was a low profile until his son Klaus would get the attention of his girlfriend's father. And that takes us back to Israel. The letter from prosecutor Fritz Bauer made its way to Mossad. Mossad means institute. HaMossad leModi'in uLetachidim Me'adim, the Institute for Intelligence and Special Operations. The first step would be to confirm Eichmann's identity. Like many spy operations, this would be compartmentalized. Those participating in the operation would not necessarily know who they were seeking. Mossad also used Sayanim, Sayan, Sayanid, Sayanim, helpers, Israeli citizens living abroad who would be asked to do a favor for Israel without asking questions. To confirm Eichmann's identity, Mossad sent a Sayanid, a female helper, to a hotel. It was young Klaus Eichmann's birthday. The Sayanit had a birthday gift for him, a Zippo lighter. The Sayanit found a bellman at the hotel, gave him the lighter with a card to Nicholas Clement, wishing him a happy birthday. The Sayanit asked the bellman to deliver the gift, and she asked that he return with extensive detail. The bellman returned despondent. There was a Nicholas, and it was his birthday. But Klaus explained that his surname was not Clement, it was Eichmann. The Sayanit gave the bellman an extraordinarily generous tip. With Klaus Eichmann's birthday confirmed, Mossad wanted to double-check. Disguised as property surveyors, Mossad agents snapped photos of Eichmann using cameras hidden in briefcases. At first, they saw Eichmann around his house and thought he could be working with weapons or explosives, but it turned out he was watering his plants. Mossad received an Or Yarok, a green light, but there was a snag. There was no extradition treaty. What if Eichmann had an army of supporters, a secret Fourth Reich militia? Should Eichmann just have an accident, like involving train tracks? No. Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion wanted Eichmann captured, brought to Israel, and tried. They were in luck. It was Argentina's 150th anniversary. Israel would send a delegation to the festivities. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Abba Eban, would attend the anniversary in Argentina. Ambassador Eban would arrive in Argentina in a special airplane. Our national airline, El Al, had a flagship, the Bristol Britannia. It was a sturdy turboprop, known for its very long range. El Al had even made a name for itself. On flights over the Atlantic, other airlines had to make fuel stops in Goose Bay or Gander, Newfoundland. El Al's Britannia could make the trip non-stop. The Britannia could also, therefore, fly from Argentina to Israel with just one stop. Ambassador Eben was at the anniversary events. The Britannia was in a hangar at the airport. It was time. On the 11th of May, 1960, Eichmann was accosted on his way home from work. Blinded by oncoming headlights, he was shoved into the back of a car and sped off to a safe house. He would need to be drugged and disguised, so Eichmann was dressed as an El Al employee, a steward who had fallen ill. Yes, the Nazi fugitive was dressed as a flight attendant. Meanwhile, a scion had to check himself into hospital with a fake head injury. This would provide paperwork, just in case. Sedated and blindfolded, Eichmann was brought aboard the Britannia. Those on board had a good idea of who the blindfolded passenger was in the front row. They had to resist temptation to open the door and give Eichmann a closer view of the Atlantic. With just one stop, the Britannia made its way to Israel without difficulty. On the upper right are the notes Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion had when he announced to the Knesset, Parliament, that Eichmann was on Israeli soil. The nation of Israel was only 13 years old. They didn't even have a courthouse for the trial. Instead, they had to convert Beit Ha'am, a community theater. The trial would be filmed. Every night, reels would be flown to London and New York so that the world could watch. Justice Gideon Hausner presided. Testimonies included corroborated and detailed descriptions of the machinery of genocide. Others spoke on a more individual level. Most famously, a man spoke of watching his daughter being taken off to be killed. He could follow her because she was wearing a red coat, a story retold in Schindler's List. The stories were unvarnished. It was a diversion from Nazis portrayed as bad guys, like in The Sound of Music. These were raw and violent details of a carefully orchestrated mass murder. Eichmann would claim that he was just following orders. Journalist Hannah Arendt wrote of the banality of evil, but the trial showed that it was not banal at all. The trial revealed how Eichmann and others acted with unrelenting zeal. Their hatred for Jews was so profound that transports to Auschwitz continued even after the war ended. Eichmann was found guilty. He appealed and lost. He was hanged and buried at sea. Like Bin Laden, there is no memorial, no monument. But there is a tribute to the Mossad operation. In 2012, Mossad opened its archives. Here, for example, is Eichmann's fake El Al identity card. The briefcase cameras, fake license plates, and communiques were put on display at Beit Hatzufot in Tel Aviv. It is a commemoration of luck, spycraft, and justice. Helpers, Israeli citizens living abroad who would be asked to do